Welcome back to another episode of the Real Talk Corner podcast, where we dive deep into personal journeys and topics that can inspire and transform us on a mind, body, soul, and spirit level. I'm your host, Ariana Gutierrez. In today's episode, we're diving into a topic that's often whispered about but rarely understood: swinging in non monogamous lifestyles. Joining me is a life and confidence coach, Joe Leavitt, who specializes in helping those in these communities thrive. Together, we'll break down the myths, challenge the stereotypes, and clear up the judgments surrounding this taboo subject. So get ready to expand your perspective and join us for this candid conversation on embracing authenticity and choice in relationships. You don't want to miss it. The Real Talk Corner. We back. We in the building. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, fighting my way through the darkness where the wicked don't rest. Conscious aware, truth I dare, shield tied to my chest. My tenacity can put these motherfuckers to the test. High priestess of fire, alchemistic desire. I say manifest and shit, even when I am tired. You can call me amazing, by the bricks I be laying, but you'll never call me lazy, cause my vibes are devastating. In the league of my own, spitting real talk energy. I know a little something about a thing called synergy. This is so ready to throw a sun and masses awaken me. Listen up, cause we about to set your mind, body, and soul free. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Real Talk Corner. Today with my special guest, Joe Leavitt. I'm going to let her tell you about herself and what she does before we get into the theme of today.
Hey everybody, I am Joe Leavitt, not Leavitt, but that's okay. I've answered to a lot. I've been called way worse, so totally fine with that. I am the host of the Confident Swinger podcast. I'm a lifestyle and confidence coach. I've been in the lifestyle with my husband for 18 years now, probably. And that's the lifestyle is sort of like that umbrella term for ethical non-monogamy. So some form of open relationship is kind of the umbrella for the lifestyle. But I have a podcast. I love helping people manage their bitchy little brains so they can embrace their badassery and just live their best lives. So
Right.
that's me.
I absolutely love, and sorry for your name. Usually I ask first before we even start, but I'll carry on. I love this topic because, of course, it's still taboo in 2024, right? It's still so taboo, and everybody has an opinion on it. But of course, how did you get to the point of being a coach? And how did that? Because I can get coming into the lifestyle and open up, and we'll kind of unpack that. But how did it become like, you know what? I actually want to help people open this up, open this side of them.
Right. Like, how did that become like your job? Right. No, I
Right.
get that. It um ironically enough, it really started like with my own personal growth journey, sort of probably I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. Time and technology are not my friends. So they sort of live in sort of like another realm of my life that I really never fully understand. So probably 3 or 4 years ago, I just kind of went through that, what my husband called my midlife crisis, of like trying to figure out what I really wanted, like the next chapter of my life to look like. And I had been in the same job for like almost 20 years at that point, and I enjoyed it. Like I'm annoyingly optimistic. That's just kind of who I am. So I typically find the best in any situation. And so I enjoyed what I did, but I wasn't passionate about it,
Right.
and I felt like I had a lot more gifts than I was putting out into the universe, right? I just felt like I had all of this potential that was just being untapped, that it wasn't being utilized
Right.
the way I wanted it to be. So it kind of set me on that like journey of what I wanted to do, what I want to be when I grow up. And um I dabbled in HR a little bit. And, there was a big aspect of that in my other job. And that was, the part of my job that I really loved was like connecting with people and helping people. But I
Right.
found coaching, and coaching was like that big, huge light bulb moment. But
Mm,
I still didn't know in what way I wanted to coach people. At first, I thought that it was gonna be like career coaching,
right.
because that was sort of the journey that I had gone on of trying to figure out like, what I wanted to do with my life. Um, and my husband actually made an offhand comment one day. We were talking about the swinging and guys in the lifestyle and them having a hard time making the first move and not being confident and that kind of thing. And he's like, you really probably need to help guys like figure that shit out. And I was like, huge light bulb moment. And I was like,
Mm,
yes, of course that's it. Because it's the world that I know, it's the world that I love. I'm super passionate about that anyway. And the confident swinger was born. So it's not, there are a lot of coaches that
mm,
specifically help people get into the lifestyle, that specifically help guide them into the lifestyle. I can do that. I have done that with some of my clients before, but it's not necessarily like my my target. Really, I'm a very individualization is one of my Clifton strengths. That's like
okay.
um my forte. So I connect with people very well. And some people, if your desire is to get into the lifestyle, then I can help with that. But a lot of people are already in the lifestyle and there are things that are holding them back. They're not confident. They're not confident in their bodies. They're not confident in their sexual performance. They're not confident with riding some dude's face. They're not confident in any number of things. And I'm
Right.
like, let me help you with that.
Right.
So I love it.
I have heard of sexologists and people who help sex coach and all of those things, but I had never heard of like a swinger coach. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's talk about this.
Right.
So,
It's funny because sometimes I will like post my episodes on Reddit, and I've had those comments from swingers. They're like, "Why would we need a swinger coach? Like that's a thing?" And I'm like, some people it helps people. Like
right, right.
I'm all about helping people. So yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that when you're walking into this, I think there's an aspect of exploration in it, and so there's so much unknown for both of the parties of the couple that they're opening this door.
Absolutely.
And when you are opening door with other partners, there's so much different things you can learn. There's the different things you're like, wait a minute, I wasn't aware of this, or it takes you to a different place, right?
There's so much. And really through my journey of coaching, I've spent I spent time coaching couples and I realized that like that wasn't really the good fit for me because
Mhm,
me I'm all about individuals and so I want to help you explore those feelings that come up. I want to help you explore and help you figure out how to manage those emotions.
mhm,
And then you can take that back to your partner. You can take that back to your relationship, but really like I am all about helping individual people figure out their like figure out their explorations, figure out, okay, like I'm having some jealousy about this or I'm conflicted. That's such a huge thing. It's like I want this and I also don't. I want this and I'm afraid of this and they it leaves them stuck and they
mhm,
don't know how to process that. They don't know how to proceed. And so one of the things that I love to do is just create that safe container to
mhm,
allow them to recognize the fact that like your thoughts, your emotions, all of that shit, it's all fine. It's all fine. Like there's nothing wrong with you wanting to be curious. There's nothing wrong with you
right,
being, looking at that dude and being like, I would really like to fuck him. It's fine for you to feel that way. And of
right,
course, it's going to bring up a lot of emotions for you.
right,
And that's okay too. It's just helping people figure out how to manage those things, how to and then once they figure out how to manage it themselves, then
mhm,
they can learn how to communicate that in a way that's gonna be, like, actually effective and actually helpful and actually, like, move their relationship to a better, deeper place.
Right. Do you ever find that a lot of that comes from, more religious beliefs that
Ugh,
people's backgrounds of the religion and then, like, you need to be pure and, sex is like a sin and, all of that stuff. Do you find it more of with the religion backgrounds?
There is a lot of that. Yeah, there's a lot of people that come into it, like, they have that religious programming that says that, this is right and wrong,
Right.
and it's really hard to deconstruct that.
Oh,
I'm incredibly spiritual, and I am not religious because I feel like spirituality, like, opens you up
mm,
to so many possibilities, whereas I feel like religion limits you. R
true. Yeah.
and, so it's challenging, and one of the things that I have a client that is kind of goes through that, and that's been, um I've had several, but one specifically, it's super challenging for him to try to recognize where those thoughts are coming from and recognize that he doesn't want to feel that way anymore, and,
Right.
go through the whole gamut, the whole journey of learning how to accept this piece of him, learning how to feel like it's okay.
Right. 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 Definitely. I could see how that could be a thing. I'm a more sexual liberated person. I always have been. So sex was not talked about in my house. So my mom, they did not talk about any of that stuff. Although later on I found out they were swingers.
Really? That's
they
interesting.
they used to party and it was like, interesting. You guys don't talk nothing about anything, but you guys are over here having a ball. But
That's so interesting that they were very open themselves, but they didn't feel like it sounds like maybe they, um I'm curious, like, what
they're
their
from an
reasons were
older
for
they're
not
from an
wanting
older generation. So their generation was like more, they didn't talk to
you
kids.
don't
Kids
talk ab
were
Yeah,
seen, not heard. We didn't
yeah,
have that conversation. We weren't buddies. We weren't friends like that.
yeah,
It wasn't until I got pregnant in my teens and I was home a lot. And then my mom decided to want to befriend me. And then she started telling me way too much of their life. And it was just like, I didn't need to know any of this shit.
right? Then it was sort of like, you went from nothing to everything, then it's
Right.
overload at that point. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right, and, they both had Catholic backgrounds, so they definitely had the Catholic backgrounds, and then just their, sex was not talked about, so and I from my mom's point of view, she did everything for my dad. Wasn't She didn't seem like she really enjoyed it, it was more for him to, "This is my duty to my husband, this is what I'm supposed to be doing," that kinda thing.
yeah. And you still see that a lot even in the lifestyle now is and
Mm,
that's one of the reasons why I focus so much on individuals is because the lifestyle journey, that sexual journey, it needs to be about you and it
mm,
needs to be about your partner. It can't just be about your partner.
right,
And it can't just be about your relationship. It needs to be about you and your feelings and your curiosities and your desire to explore and your gratification and your sexual pleasure, and it needs to be about you at least as much as it's about your relationship.
right, right. I do believe that you can do things for others. I think it's a grand gesture, but I don't think it works. I think at the end of the day, because you're gonna have if you're not really enjoying it, then you're gonna have the resentment build up. You're gonna have the guilt build up. You're gonna have
Absolutely.
all of those things build up, and it's just like, then what do you do? Start to attack your partner, start to argue with your partner, and all of that stuff starts to flow, right?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I love so much about the lifestyle.
Mhm.
Honestly, like it's not the sexual component because we've been in this lifestyle for, like I said, probably 18 years at this point, and um, we've had very, very long dry spells where we haven't played with anybody else. We have these amazing friendships, and so we've always had those amazing friendships where um, it's just a different level of intimacy when you can be open totally with these other people and you don't feel judged. Really, the
Right.
lifestyle, in my opinion, it isn't so much about the sex, it's about the acceptance. It's
Mm,
about this community of people that accept you for your n- non-traditional sexual desires, and because sex is so vulnerable in itself,
mm.
you being willing to open up about your sexual desires creates this level of acceptance and freedom that is it's just it's unmatched.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to bring up was what are some of the misconceptions of the swinger lifestyle that you come across, especially the ones that you have to work with your clients to work through?
Okay, so let me ask you this first. It, what do you think about when you think about the swinging lifestyle?
So I'm a little bit different. I don't have like the precon. Like I said, I've been a very open sexual person. Now, I've not been a swinger,
Mhm.
but I've been like a unicorn. I've played around. I've done a lot of stuff to just play in the sexual realm. So me, I don't have that where I'm looking at it and I'm assuming anything. You
Okay.
know, the only thing I know about it that one like listening to some people who do it for their partners, right? And then the other part of just that's what you want, not necessarily like you have to, but some people just want to. I don't know anything behind that of just that you would want to do it, that you want to, play with other people in that way.
Yeah. So the misconceptions that I hear a lot too is that it's just a big orgy and that it's just all about sex
Right.
and that everybody that's in the lifestyle is just looking to fuck everybody else. So it's just like you meet them and you're automatically wanting to have sex with them. And there's a huge because people are people and there's no normal, there is no one right way. There are people in the lifestyle that want to fuck everybody else that they meet. Like
Right.
there are some people that are just into it just for sex. They
Right.
That's all they want out of it, and that's okay.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's been my experience that that's not the majority of people. Those people are in the minority. The
Mm,
majority of people, they get into it for the sex. Of course, you get into it to explore sexually or to add that spark, that excitement, because relationships kind of get stagnant sometimes and they get boring.
mm,
And it's like you love your partner, um, you have a happy relationship, but things are just kind of boring. They get a little eh, and so sometimes the lifestyle can be a great way to add that excitement, and it like reignites the spark that you have with each other, which is amazing. Um, and I think most people when they're thinking about swinging, they just think about, it being a big orgy. When people have heard from me, like, so I base this from when people find out that I'm a swinger and they don't know, they're like, number one, is the upside down pineapple really a thing? It really is. Like, that's really a symbol that we talk about
okay.
within the lifestyle a lot. And do you guys have key parties?
Mm,
That's like the this huge, I don't want to say misconception because some people do have key parties. So
right.
yes, it does happen. It's not necessarily like what happens every time. There are events that you go to, you meet people, if you're attracted to them and they have the same dynamic you do and you guys all kind of want the same thing and there's an attraction. Maybe you play at the party, maybe you don't, maybe you get to know each other, and maybe you play in the future, or maybe you don't. Another like common misconception is, and it's hard with misconceptions because again, like some of those misconceptions are founded in fact, like it's just a way for people to cheat. I get that a lot. It's just a way for people to cheat. What makes cheating unethical is the fact that it's non-consensual. So, it's not cheating if everybody is in agreement
Right.
with it.
Right.
However, if you want, and that doesn't mean that like every lifestyle relationship is amazing and healthy, because like you said, there are going to be people that get into it that one of their partners pushes the other one into it,
Right.
and they go into it because they are trying to please their partner. There's a lot of people pleasers in the world. There's a lot of people pleasers in the lifestyle. I'm a recovering people pleaser, so I totally feel that too.
Right.
Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the majority of them are like that. So I don't know if that totally answered your question or
I
if we
mean,
kind of went off on another tangent.
I think you guys in the comments, if you guys have more misconceptions, let me know. We might have to do a part two if you
Yeah.
have some myths that you heard that we did not mention today. I do feel like there's so many different reasons. I think I have heard some people say that before. I know years ago, before probably before I started really um, kind of like playing with couples, I'll say that. I really was like, I don't know how you could do that. On
Mhm.
my side, the single one coming into it is different from the couple coming into it.
Very much so.
And so a lot of people I would hear back and forth about it being a confidence thing or an insecure thing. And I remember I had to sit with that. But I just realized I'm just a very possessive person
Mhm.
sexually. So I feel like what people again, all these misconceptions and not understanding yourself sexually, not understanding what you like, what you don't like. It's like, yeah, I could play with you guys, but I can't do that because I'm too possessive to do that. There's a certain part of me I just want my person by myself. That's kind of how it goes. Now I don't know if that would ever change after years of being with
Mhm.
someone. I have no idea because you don't know how things would change. You don't know
You
what'll happen. You could say, "Oh, I'll never do that," and that'll never happen. And then all of a sudden you're, swinging and shit. So,
yeah.
you can't say never because you don't know. And
There's
I
a
think,
lot. Exactly. There's a lot of swingers in the lifestyle that have come from, any number of backgrounds that really truly believed they would
right,
never do that. I have a client that, or I've had a client in the past that felt like he, first of all, he thought that he would never be in the lifestyle anyway. He thought that he would never be okay with anybody else having, sex with his wife. And then he got into it. And then, at the beginning, he was like, well, I would never think about, um, being with other men too, and through his, like, exploration, like, he's embraced his bisexual side as well. It's like
right,
you never, and happier than he's ever been,
right,
because he's been, willing to accept those pieces of himself. He's been willing to, like,
right,
explore pieces of himself, and he's been willing to, like, sit with those feelings and be like, "Okay, well, let me try this." And it's really, like you said earlier, it's about exploration, and it's about being willing to explore. And willingness is such a huge piece. And
right,
willingness is like self-consent,
mm,
right? And willingness, um, to face the unknown,
right,
because you don't ever really know how you're going to react. You can try to set up as many safeguards as you can,
right,
and they could mean dick in the moment. They could not mean a damn thing in the moment, because emotions are not logical.
right, right. I love that you brought that up because it's still very stereotypical, especially with men. So it's like more than you see the man like, oh yeah, we'll bring a girl into it, but not anything else. And I think that there goes that stereotype of what you can. And for me, I always try to remind people like stop like comparing or putting together who you are with your sexual desires.
Mhm.
Like your sexual desires are different. Like it doesn't make you like gay or wrong or all of these things that we label everybody for all of these things, right? Just because sexually you like to play around. I think that's where society has messed it up. So people are
Yeah.
afraid to do this because I'm going to get deemed this and I'm going to be looked at this way. And it's not who I am. And it's like, because I went through that. I went through that of all of the stereotypical, like, well, am I gay? And am I bisexual? And all this stuff. And then I'm like, at the end of the day, no, I'm none of that. I just
Right.
like to play around. Like,
And also, And also sexuality is so fluid. Like I can and that's the challenging thing for me. And
Mm,
of course the universe has such a funny sense of humor that the universe always tries to put um opposites, total opposites together because I think she thinks it's funny. And I would too. I would totally do that too.
right.
But my husband has very, very different desires, needs for connections and things like that than I do. Very different. And part of the reason that we have such a strong relationship too is because we accept each other's differences
Mm,
and we honor those differences and we still try to find a way that works for both of us that honors both of those things like without trying to change the other person like i
right.
am I am not the planner. If you try to tell me that we're going to have a sex date night, my body is going to be like fuck you. I am not getting turned on in the least because like it does not work that way. But on a random Tuesday at 2 o'clock, if you touch my hair the right way, I'm like, oh, let's fucking go, like right now. And my husband is more like, that random 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, he's like, we can't just go right now. We've got this
Right.
and this, and I'm like, oh no, like it's go time. And so he needs more of a connection. He needs to feel comfortable. He needs to feel safe. He wants to build more of a connection with a woman before he even knows if he's sexually attracted to her. He's definitely more demisexual, and I'm more like I want the spur of the moment. I want if it happens, it happens, and I want to be able to go with it. And that's super challenging for him because he's also um, he's very protective, understandably,
Mhm.
and he doesn't want me to be in a situation that he doesn't know is safe. Well,
Right.
part of it for me is the danger, that little tiny bit of danger is part of the turn on for me. And so it's always a challenge for us of trying to honor each other's needs and desires and honoring our own needs and desires.
Yeah. That sounds complicated.
It is. It is hard. It is challenging. And for those people that say that jealousy has no place in the lifestyle, that's bullshit. Like, jealousy is a fucking human emotion, so as long as there's humans in the lifestyle, there's gonna be jealousy in the lifestyle. There's gonna
Right.
be insecurity, there's gonna be, um, resentment, there's gonna be all of those things. Like, you can't take those away from it, and the point isn't to take those away from it. The point is to honor when those come up and process them with your partner and talk about it and
Right.
move past it.
Right. Right. I do believe that people should talk about sex more. I talk about this with dating. I think that people underrate how important sex is to a relationship. A lot of people are like, sex is not important. I'm like, bullshit. Bullshit. Because
For most people, sex is a huge part of the
they
relationship.
just won't admit it. They won't
Oh,
admit it. And I believe where I'm at, I'm in my 40s, right? So I pretty much know what I like and what I don't like sexually. I kind of have figured that out now. I've like I said, I've explored and I've done my things, so I kind of know where I stand sexually. So I think it's important to have these conversations of what your turn-ons are, what you know that you like. And the problem I see is that if you like something that's outside of the box of society, you're not going to say that. You're going to keep it to yourself because you're afraid to be judged. But at some point, you're going to want it. At some
mhm,
point, you're going to crave it. At some
mhm.
point, you're going to be like, hey, what about this? Like, you ever thought about, instead of just having the conversation and finding someone who maybe have those interests like you, like, hey, I've probably kind of thought about that. And if
Yeah,
we can be honest about it, maybe you'd have a better, sex life with your partners
yeah,
versus the secrecy. And then we get into the whole cheating and stuff like that, which has nothing to
absolutely.
do with you. It has everything to do with them, right?
Right. And that's you're so right. Like, not all of my clients are in the lifestyle. Not all of my clients want to be in the lifestyle. I have clients that I've helped them accept their sexual desires, their sexual kinks, and just that piece, that acceptance in themselves opened them up to be a happier, more confident, more loving person in general. And so that piece helped their job, helped their relationship with their kids, helped their relationship with their friends. It didn't have anything to do necessarily like, their relationship with their kids shouldn't have anything to do with their sexual kinks, but it
Right.
does in the sense that it allowed them to accept that piece of themselves and they didn't feel broken anymore. They didn't feel like there was something wrong
Mhm.
with them. And
Right.
that allowed them to embrace that love, to love themselves in that way. And
Right.
that rippled out to every aspect of their life. Like, confidence is not about walking into a room and having everybody look at you.
Right.
Confidence is about self-trust, self-acceptance, and self-love, and that's it. Those 3 things. That's what confidence is really about.
Right. You go, especially like I think that's what I've seen, like a lot of people that lack that sexual confidence, right? And again, I do believe it ties back to those belief systems, like I always I masturbated. So for me, I was like the one of the few girls who probably ever did, right? And then when I got older and I had my kids, I was like, you guys need to masturbate. And they'd be like, oh, what are you talking about? I'm like, trust me, if you do that, you're going to save yourself some headaches. You'll be able to explore your own body, right? And then you will kind of figure some stuff out that you will need to know later. Because if
Right.
you can't say where you're feeling or where you're what you like, how would you be able to direct the person? And I
Absolutely.
come across a lot of women who just expect the guy to know everything. You're
Right.
supposed to know my body, you're supposed to know where to touch me, you're supposed to know how to please me. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. You don't
One
even
of
know.
one of my favorite podcast episodes that I did is why you should be a selfish lover.
Mm,
And really, it's the piece of that is because you need to be able to explore what works for you. You need to know what turns you on. You need to know your body. You need to know those things for yourself first so
right,
that you can communicate those, so that you can be empowered, so that you can take control of your own sexual pleasure and
right,
direct someone else. Because if you don't even know what you like, you don't even know what those turn-ons are, how are you going to expect somebody else to bring you that pleasure? How you don't know what you're going to respond to because you don't have any idea. So there's
right.
so much empowerment in being a selfish lover initially. And that's like that again, I go back to that's why I coach individuals is because it's all about like you need to focus on yourself. You need to pour that love into yourself. You need to know that self-acceptance piece, that self-trust piece. You can't trust anybody else any more than you trust yourself. And self-trust is like a huge thing that people don't even recognize they don't have. They don't trust themselves, and so they project that onto their partners because they don't fucking trust themselves.
Right. Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. I think that's where most people they just don't and that goes for me, self-awareness is key. So
huge.
when you get into the boat of self-awareness, you can unpack why you do what you do, why you react the way you react, and where you are. And that's where, like I said, I've gotten to the point where I know it's for me, it is a selfish. I am possessive in the sexual arena. So there's like no way that we're gonna successfully do this together. I don't know.
At
Like
this point in your life,
at this
this is
point in
where
my
you are
life.
right now, and that's the thing. So, the way we got started in the lifestyle, was because I, had always kinda had that thought in the back of my head about, like, the curiosity or the bi tendencies about being with another woman, um, and I had never been with anybody else in any kind of a healthy relationship before the relationship that I had with my husband, so I had never been even willing to accept that to myself, to acknowledge that to myself in a healthy way, let alone to a partner.
Right.
And, things were different when I met him, and I felt he created safety for me. Like, he gave me home that I had
Mm,
never had before, and it gave me the safety and the willingness to accept it to acknowledge it to myself, so that I
mm,
told him, and he was like, "Okay, well, like, let's explore that." Looking back now, if I had had that same conversation with him about me wanting to fuck other dudes, we would probably have had a very different experience, but that's not what happened, and that's okay.
right.
So for the majority of our lifestyle experience, it started with me exploring playing with other women. And at first, he didn't even participate. This was all about me. And then he sort of, participated a little bit more.
Mm,
And then I realized how big of a turn on it was for me seeing him with another woman, and so that kind of fed into it as well. And then he kind of got that confidence too, because that's one of the things that people probably don't recognize is how much confidence can come from being in the lifestyle, because
mm,
people see you differently, and it's like you recognize that you are desirable to other
mm.
people, not just your partner, because, it's easy to downplay that your partner wants you because they love you, they're supposed to want you. But when you get into the lifestyle, all of a sudden you have, like, other people desiring you and other people wanting you, and you're like, "Oh, like, I guess maybe I am desirable," and so it kinda opens that piece up too. So, he kinda gained more confidence and found that he wanted to play more as well. But it was still really, and I've played with guys here and there over the years, but it really was more situational. It was more like, yeah, I think I'll go play with him," or it was kind of fun at the moment, but it wasn't something that I sought out
Right.
until, like, a couple of years ago when I met a guy that, like, the stars had aligned in that moment that was like, "Oh, I'm attracted to this man.
Mm,
That's not my husband. I'm attracted to this other man. Like, I want this other man."
right.
And that changed our dynamic, and that was very challenging for my husband. It was very challenging for me. We had to work through a lot. It brought up a lot of insecurities. It brought up a lot of jealousies. And this is for a couple that had been in the lifestyle for,
Right.
15 years at that point.
Right.
So it's an ever changing, ever evolving journey. And as long as you're willing to see that, as long as you're willing to do your own work, recognize where those feelings come from, the insecurities, the jealousies, as long as you're willing to do the work and be honest about that and work on your, like, do your own work and also work together as a couple,
Right.
you can move forward, and it can bring such beautiful levels of depth and intimacy that just strengthen your relationship in amazing ways.
Yeah. I would think it would take a lot of just really communicating and listening. I have seen the two different sides. So I've seen the couple that respects their boundaries and there's no, crossing whatever boundaries or rules they've set in
Mhm.
place. And then I have seen the opposite where that part of someone being more interested and then the conversations outside of that, go and then it creates a problem. Um, for them. So I do feel like there is that chance from what you see, even from what you're saying, there is that chance that someone's going to come along that you are attracted to, not just, okay, we're here, we're playing, it's a good time, but there's this pull or there's this, it's very different, right? Than just, okay, playtime. Explain that a little bit just for anyone who's kind of listening, because I know what you're saying, that pull to someone versus just this is what it is. We're having fun.
Mhm.
We leave, we're done, and that's it. But then there is those times where it's like, oh wait, but now there's the do I cross this line now or do I push back and say no or figure how do you even figure that
Right.
part out?
Right. What do you do with that? And that's it's a balance, of course. And every I have this thought in my head. I actually had this discussion with my husband last night and this morning that was like, there's always going to be this line between, like, you having your desires and you honoring your desires and those things that you want, and you being a very respectful, very considerate partner and not doing something that is going to make them uncomfortable, is going to hurt them, is going to cause them discomfort. It's always a balance. It's always a balancing act. And sometimes you're going to swing this way, and sometimes you're going to swing back this way. And sometimes you need to do that because you need to know those feelings that are associated with swinging that way so that you kind of come back to that center, right? Because happiness lies in the balance. Happiness lies somewhere on the continuum. It doesn't exist in the extremes. So for me, for us, like my relationship is very important. Respect is a huge component of our relationship. Consideration and caring is a huge component of our relationship. So when I had those feelings, which shocked the fuck out of me,
Mhm.
because again, we've been in this a long time and it was the first time that it had happened. Um, I was hesitant to even bring it up to him because that's a challenging thing to say. Hey, I'm
Right.
attracted to this guy. I've never been attracted to guys before. And there was
Right.
that fear that that's going to bring up insecurities for him, which it did.
Right.
And so that's hard. It's hard to have those hard conversations. And I think that's part of the reason why I love the lifestyle so much, is because you have agreed to have those hard conversations. And that's where growth comes from. That's how you get that depth. That's how you get those levels of intimacy, is being willing to say things that may be hard, but for the right reasons. Like
Mm.
I was doing that because I needed to be honest with him about how I felt, because honesty is a huge part, it's very important to our relationship as well. So I had that conversation with him and then we sat on it for a while. I brought it up to him and I let him process that and I let him think about it and we talked about it. And um he was like, "Well, logically, like I've played with women before. There's no logical reason why I can't tell you that you can play with another man."
Right.
And, so I had that go ahead. And I also knew that this was a logical thing, that his emotions were feeling something different.
Mhm.
And I also had to recognize that, his emotions, he's responsible for his emotions. And so if he's given me that go ahead, then I need to respect the fact that he's given me that go ahead, you know? And so I played with this guy and it brought up a lot. Like it opened Pandora's box of all of these emotions for
Mhm.
him. And he ended up like, which was a good thing, and it didn't feel good in the moment, of course, especially for him, but all of these feelings came flooding out that he could no longer ignore. And he ended up going, like, finally at that point being willing to like get therapy. And so he found a therapist that he liked and that he connected with, and it allowed him to like process a lot of feelings and emotions that he had never really been willing to acknowledge or explore before.
Right.
So that seemingly difficult situation led to us being in such a better place than we are. And so even through that, and that's been a few years ago now,
Mhm.
even since that, I haven't gone and played with another guy on my own. We're still working towards that because we're still like figuring that out. There's still that give and take.
Right.
Because I respect him, I respect his feelings, I respect our relationship. And he also respects me and my desires. And so he's willing to do the work to acknowledge those feelings and get to that point where he's willing to put himself in that situation again.
Right. Right. Sounds like you guys have done so much groundwork for what you do.
So much work.
I was gonna ask you like the psychological part to this because it does, just like you're mentioning on so many different stories that you're saying, it does shift that. And there's a lot of things that would come up that you would need to deal with, that you would need to sit with, and kind of unpack the whys behind it, or why you're feeling this, why is this coming up. Um, And I think that that's more so what people should do far as their sexuality. And that's why I say the whole mixing of who you are with sexual desires. I feel like it's the same as, like, what do I want to eat? I have preferences in my food choices. I have what I love, I have my favorites, and then I have stuff that are like, I don't like that, right? And I feel like it's the same as all of those things, but I think we put way too much on it. Also, I think too, part, and maybe you've come across this, of the childhood issues that come into play. So I'm pretty sure, and I know men have a lot of it where they've had experiences and stuff when they were younger, but because of the stigmas, it is deep embedded, and there's a lot of shame and guilt that goes with that. And I know myself, like I said, I kind of dealt with that because my first experiences were with girls. So it kind of opened up something within me that it was just like had me questioning and going through that. But I think women, of course, it's easier because we're pushed to be bisexual,
It's more
bisexual.
accepted. It's
Yeah,
definitely
it's
more
more
accepted.
accepted, and you can do that with no problems. But men, on the other hand, it's like they don't have that leisure to do that.
No, you're either gay or you're straight. There is no gray with that.
Right,
And it's definitely like in the lifestyle, um, it's becoming more accepted than it was, 15, 18 years ago. It's
right,
definitely becoming more accepted. You see a lot more men that are being willing to be vocal and be open about the fact that they are bisexual or bifluid or bisituational or whatever term they want to use to describe themselves. You're
right.
definitely seeing in the lifestyle a lot more. And as more people are being open about it and being vocal about it, then it gives other people the freedom, the safety, the courage to also open up about it.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
And
I
yeah,
could see that.
there's definitely like, you know, I'm a coach. I have coaches. I love coaching because I know how helpful it's been for me. Like I would not be where I am without that, without
Right,
coaching.
right.
And I have recognized even in the last year that I had a lot of that unprocessed, you know, sexual trauma from my childhood, a lot of like parental trauma, a lot of things. And it's not all just lifestyle related. I've also started a new like day job that helps me process a lot of that stuff too, which I just love. It's like all of these amazing pieces of my life are falling into place,
Right.
and I'm seeing all of the results of the things that I want. And it's because I've been willing to do all of this work and explore all of these things and manage all of my thoughts and feelings and figure out where they come from and what I want and accept myself and love myself and all of the shit.
Right.
All of the things.
I love it. So if a couple was like, you know what, we've been thinking about this, how do they go about that? Because I feel like it's not like you just look in the ads and there's like a swinger ad. It's like, hey, come on over,
That
we're having a swinger party.
that is a good question. So first of all, obviously like have that discussion, and if you guys feel like you're at that place where you're like, okay, we're ready to like dip in.
Mm,
There are like um there are websites that you can go to that are sort of like dating sites, kind of like Tinder, but for swinging, and um they're regional. So there's like Cassidy is one I know, SLS is one, C4P, which is Club Foreplay. I'm sure there are several more. I'm not an online person. Like I have profiles on some of those. C4P was the one that we used because it's big in the Midwest where I'm from. Um, my recommendation is going to be to find other people. And so my I'm not an online person. There are some people that love that. And that's great. I'm not advocating for one way or the other. All I could do is like share what works best for me. And what works best for me is like meeting people in real life.
right.
So I would say, and sometimes you have to use online resources to get to be able to meet people in line. So join some Facebook groups. And if you want to, a lot of people will create a different profile that's lifestyle specific so that their friends and family don't know that they um all of a sudden they're friends with a bunch of swingers, and then their mom starts asking questions and shit like that, which I totally get. Privacy, it's kind of like, in some ways I feel like the lifestyle is kind of like the Fight Club. We don't talk about Fight Club, we don't talk about the lifestyle, except for people like me that are very open about it and talk about it.
Right, right.
But Facebook groups are a great way. So you can find local Facebook groups. There's also the Pineapple Lifestyle 101 is an amazing Facebook group. It's very informative. It's not a lot of Facebook groups are going to be like hookup sites, which is
Right.
understandable.
Yeah.
But you're going to find a lot of information and resources from that Facebook group. You can also like reach out to me. I'm sure all of my contacts are in there. And I can maybe point you in the direction of if I know of any groups that would be local in your area, I can
Mm,
point you to those. I would recommend um, going to an event with zero expectations. So don't go looking to hook up, go just to feel it out and set
mm,
that in place first. Be like, hey, our boundary right now is that we are not going to get naked. We are not going to play with anybody else. That is not what we are going to do. We're
right,
going to see how we feel about the situation and to meet some other people, period. That's it.
right,
Because it kind of creates that safety for you to be able to enjoy the situation without the pressure of, hey, we're here to try to hook up, because that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure for regular seasoned lifestyle people, let alone newbies who are just
right,
getting their feet wet. So also, like, it may sound strange, but like go visit like a sex shop in your area and talk to the people that work there, because they may know. They may
mm,
know of clubs that are in your area. They may know of Facebook groups that are in your area.
right,
And just be willing to put yourself out there and get involved and start that conversation to find friends, find other like-minded people.
right. I was going to ask about that, the judgment, because we kind of know it's still hush hush. Like unless you have someone who's open and talking about it, not many people are just going around talking about their swinging adventures, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So have you had where people, when they do find out about what you do, have that judgmental kind of sway towards you, or have you really experienced that?
I'm sure they have, and it hasn't, like, affected me in a deep way. Like, we had that discussion with we didn't have, when the kids were young, because we have four children, 4 boys, and they're all grown now. When they were younger, we didn't, have these open, "Hey, mom and dad are swingers," we weren't quite that open about it.
Right.
Um We were very open sexually. We talked about sex a lot with
Right.
them, just not about our own personal
Which
sex.
is, yeah,
Um,
don't, people, don't, your kids don't want to hear.
and they still knew, because, we have boys and they talk about sex stuff with other boys, and, kids
Right.
are way smarter than we give them credit for. But when
Yes.
they became adults and when I started this business and started the podcast, I definitely didn't want them to stumble across that on their
Right.
own. Like,
Right.
I wanted to give them the respect of, um, sharing that with them in
Right.
that way. So, um, told them all individually, and every one of them were like, "Okay." Or, "Yeah, we've known that for a while."
Right. Right. Right.
Um, I'm pretty open with it at work with my job as well. It's not something that, I'm not pushing it down anybody's throat. I'm not talking about it with anybody that I know is uncomfortable with it. That's not the place to. But also, if people have questions about it, I want to be that safe space that they know that they can go to if they
Mhm.
have questions, I'm not gonna like, I am very non-judgmental about people having questions
Right.
because I get that that's the only way people are gonna learn, and I get that it's, like, it's kind of taboo, and I get that most people are like, "I don't know how you could do that." I get
Right.
it. That's fine. Like, I can help you understand from my
Mhm.
point of view. I am in no way trying to convince anybody else to do it. And I think that's probably another misconception that they have is that, swingers are trying to recruit other swingers. And some people are. Don't get me wrong. Like,
Right,
again,
right.
that kind of goes back to that misconceptions kind of have a nugget
Like
of truth in
1 in
them.
1,000, right? Of 1 in
Right.
I did have a guy trying to recruit me to be the 3rd. So he had a girl and they wanted another one, and it was like a sales pitch, and I was like, "Man, this sounds like a whole sales pitch." Like, this is not attractive at all. You're, like, selling yourselves right now. What
It's
am I buying here?
Yeah, exactly. No, like, our family knows, and they for the most part, most of them know, not everyone, but I haven't personally experienced a lot of, like it hasn't severed any relationships, or I haven't had
Right,
anybody that's, not been willing that's been like super negative about it. But again, like I also don't push it down anybody's throat. I respect everybody's choice. So, I respect your choice that this is not your lifestyle choice, and that's fine.
right,
And I want that same energy back from other people too. So
right, right.
sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't, but
Right. I wanted to know because you have the open podcast, you talk about it,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, have you? I think that people probably judge themselves before. Personally, when I meet people, I don't want to know about your sex life. Like, that's not a first conversation
Mm,
where we start talking. But if stuff comes up, of course, it's like I'm a person who's open to talk about things sexual. I have no problems with that. But I think that that is a misconception, like that everything is going to be conversations. Like, I did not like the people who just the first time you met them, it's like their sexual stuff is like all out. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't need to know all that. Like, I just
right,
met you. Didn't need to
right.
hear all of that. We just said hi. I just met you. Why do I need to know that?
Yeah,
So I don't I know it's taboo, but I don't feel like it needs to be a secret. But yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, your kids don't need to know that you're swinging. Like, they don't need to know your sexual appetite. Like, they really don't want to know, you guys. I
right,
will tell you, they don't want to know. They don't
right,
want to know what their parents are doing, even though they will. And, kids walk in on us and all of those things. But they do not want to sit and have those conversations with you and know
right.
what
We've
you're doing.
had It's funny, like, we've had, before we actually had that, like, very open conversation or whatever, there have been times with the boys when one of them in particular that kind of probably is more curious,
Mhm.
like, most of the other ones are like, they have a don't ask, don't tell kind of, I know it's a thing, I
Right.
in no way wanna talk about it, and then I have which is fine, like, I respect that as well, and then I have one that is more curious, and there were times when, he would look at me and he'd be like, "I kinda have this question that I kinda wanna ask you," and I'm like, "You are free to ask me anything that you want, and I will be totally honest with you, but just remember that you can't unknow it." Like, you
Right.
can't unhear what you
Right.
hear, and so he was kinda like, "Okay, fair. Touche." Like, yeah, I get it. And so, yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, like, I try to I try to take people where they are. Like, if they're I wanna create this safety, this non-judgment space around me anyway, and I think part of that comes with taking people where they are. So,
Right.
if they are curious, I want them to know that it's fine for them to be curious and ask questions. I'm more than happy to answer those. And also, if you don't want to know anything about it, then that's fine too. And I won't talk about anything. I respect your desire to not know as well.
Right. Right. I absolutely think it's awesome what you're doing. I feel like I said, I feel like sex is underrated. And and I've talked about other type of stuff like in kink culture and stuff like that. There's a lot I don't understand. And It's not a judgment. It's like I like to understand. I'll probably never understand some stuff, right? Just because either I don't have that pull to
Right.
it, or it doesn't excite me, or I'm not interested. But I do listen, right? I do listen to hear and take it in. But yeah, there's some things that you'll never understand unless you either try it and you like it, or you don't like it, or something like that. But
Yeah.
you know,
Talking about, like, I didn't listen to all of it, but I did listen to some of your episode on, like, the kink culture and that kind of thing, and what I was thinking as I was listening to it when you were like, "I don't understand the people that, like, are that want to be humiliated or want to be." And for here's, like, my piece of this, and I'm not necessarily one of those people that wants to be humiliated,
right.
but I also understand that they want it on their terms. They want to be humiliated because they know that they can control it. Like, in that sense, it's all about consent for them, and because ultimately they have the control. They enjoy having that control. And so even, like, you're humiliating me, but ultimately I have the control of this because I have this safe word and I know that I can use this safe word anytime I want to and you will stop immediately. So ultimately, it's about the freedom of giving up control, but knowing that you ultimately have the ultimate control in that situation. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. I still don't understand it.
Yeah,
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I understand what the way that you're saying it. But on my side, I still don't understand why you would want it. You know what I
you
mean?
know,
Like it's
right.
still like I don't have that ability
And I
to really
right.
fully take it in, because I'm like,
And
for
I
me,
think it's
that humiliation is kind of it's harsh. So like it's like,
And I
I
think
don't know.
sometimes it's a way for them to, like, flip the script. So, especially for people that have been humiliated and that's been such a negative,
Mhm.
they've had such a negative experience with it, and it's caused all of these, like, these negative, uncomfortable, hurtful feelings. Now they can take that and they can flip it. And so now instead of those emotions causing uncomfortable, negative, painful emotions, now those same things cause good emotions for them because they are seeking it out.
Mm,
So it's their way to empower themselves against those things that have been so hurtful to them in the past.
yeah, it's, it's one of
It's
those
still
things.
I mean, and I'm not again, like, this isn't coming from somebody that necessarily is like, "I'm seeking it out," but I
Right.
understand the desire and the empowerment that comes from that.
I personally don't think I'll ever understand. I just think, because I think there's certain things that just you have to be you to feel it. Like,
Absolutely.
there's just things that everyone's not going to get, everyone's not going to be into. Like I said, there's a lot of things that I kind of know some things about myself where I'm like, yeah, there's things that just don't excite me, don't interest me, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just that matter of like, yeah, I want to listen, I listen and I'm like, I want to understand, but there's some stuff I'm like, man, I really will not understand, being on the other side of it. It's just like, and I don't want to try it. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'll just sit over here. But it's never in a judgment. It's never in like a judgmental, like, are you fucking crazy? Now, some of the stuff we talked about there, yes, I'm sorry, is crazy as hell. Some of the stuff we talked on there, because the extremes, there's the extremes, right?
There's
And
exactly,
we
there's
talked about a
always
lot of
those.
that on
Yeah,
that show. That was the episode that aired this week, and it was like there's a lot of extremes that go away, and sitting in when I was learning in the class, just to see that and have someone talking about how crazy it gets. And I'm like, wow, this is rough. Like, you start to think like, wait a minute, this is crazy. And that's why I always say I'm probably more vanilla than what people would think when it comes to sex, because I'm like, man, people take it to some heights that I can't comprehend. I just like, yeah, so yeah, it's an open thing, to each his own, but yeah, I'm still trying to process and understand levels
yeah,
of
I get that.
Yeah, and I think if you just don't understand it, it's not to judge. It's just that one of those things you just have to accept that you'll never understand it, and maybe it's not for you,
And that's okay. That's
right?
okay. It's okay to not understand things too, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm still working on it, you guys. But yeah, drop me some comments about that if you guys watch that episode. Yeah, if you listen more, you'll kind of hear the stuff. Yeah, I do sit and I'm like, I don't understand. So I would love anyone in the field or someone who participates. I would love to have the conversation of just like us having this conversation. Like I said, I'm not a swinger. I've never been a swinger, but to have the conversation and just hear everything, I can understand what you're saying, even the breakdown of what you guys have been through, the therapy, just sitting with it all and going back and forth and having to work through all of these things. And I think that brings this notion of it's not as simple as people are looking at it. It's not just, oh, these people are over here having all these orgies, right? There's so much more to this than what you assume as an outsider looking in. So
Absolutely.
that's why I love the conversation with you today, is just really unpacking that. Like I said, it sounds like you and your husband have done so much groundwork. Honestly, you're still doing it. You're still going through things and working through things that come up as you guys go.
Every
You know,
day. Yeah.
I love the fact that you guys keep that respect for each other, though, because like I said, I think that's where people mess up, where they forget to keep their boundaries in place. And so when you have those rules and boundaries, keeping those in place, I think that's the more effective way of doing it versus, all right, I'm just going to start doing whatever the hell I want to. I got to pass. I'm over here. I'm over there,
Right.
and I think that's more of what people think is going on versus maybe the reality that that's not the majority of people. That's a
Right.
very, small
Small
people.
percentage. Most people don't just have a hall pass that they can do whatever they want with whoever they want at any time
Right,
they want it. Most
right,
people don't. There are some, and most people don't. And there's a lot of fears that are associated with the lifestyle, and I understand that. The biggest one probably is like, what happens if somebody catches feelings? Like
right,
that's a huge
right.
fear because
Yeah,
you're dabbling with something that is, it is sexual, it is vulnerable, it is pleasurable, it has all of those components.
right,
So, there is that possibility that, you know, what if these feelings go beyond sexual? Like, how do we respond to that?
right.
And then that's, where sometimes there's an overlap between swinging and poly, and sometimes it swings one way, sometimes it swings another. And again, it's just being willing to follow where the journey goes and just be willing to work together and be honest and respectful and communicate through it.
Right. I think that is probably the biggest one I've heard people say is the fears that come up of losing their person. And I don't really think you can plan for that. I don't think you can, even if you were open and had conversations, I don't think that's something that you might think you can plan and you have all this stuff in place, but emotions and feelings are different. Like, how you came across this person and it was like, oh shit, I'm actually attracted to this person. Haven't happened before. And I think that is more of, it could happen.
Could
You get
happen.
with this because you have a person, and I talk about this just on the sense of dating, where your person doesn't become ugly because you're in a relationship. Like, they're still attractive, you're still attractive, people are still going to be attractive to you guys. You guys will still be attracted to other people. But it's having the communication and the respect for each other to say, well, we still choose to be each other and respect our boundaries, right? Versus, and there is the gray area. Like I said, I have seen it where unfortunately, I think that people get caught up in those feelings they didn't expect, right?
Absolutely. Like
It's like,
NRE,
well,
like
okay,
new relationship energy is a thing, and there is that, like, that excitement. It's very easy to get caught up in the excitement, and I think that's one of those things that happens a lot when people get into the lifestyle is they're very
right,
caught up in the excitement, and then they cross boundaries
right,
that logically they wouldn't have done, but they get
right,
very caught up in their emotions. And so it's also part of the benefit of working with a coach, if it's something that you want, is a coach can help prepare you for those feelings that's going to come so that you know those things. You can be prepared for the emotions that you're most likely going to feel and sort of put a plan in place and some give you some tools to be able to manage those things, process those things, and be able to respond to them in a healthy way.
Right, 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 right. Oh, definitely. I don't think you can. I think stuff like that. I mean, not that you can't just walk in, because I do think there's things that no matter how much you talk about it, you'll never understand till you're in the situation, right?
Absolutely.
So and I definitely think yes, definitely work with people, but you really won't know until you're faced with the situation.
Until you're
And then
facing.
that's when the truth is like, oh shit, this is a little bit harder than what I thought it was, or this is a little bit more intense than I thought it was, or this is, and I do feel like that is the conflicting because yeah, you can't really that pull to people is it's not going to be everyone, but there could be that one person that
Absolutely.
have it, and you're like, what do I do with this?
Absolutely. And that's why the lifestyle is not for everybody. The lifestyle is not for the majority of people. And that's okay. That's why I'm not like a recruiter. I'm not ever convincing anybody that this is like a way of life that they should do. That's stupid. I'm just here to tell you my experience with it and the benefits that I've experienced with it and the possibilities that are there, and to let you know that it's hard as fuck.
Hell yeah. Hell, like I said, I know me in who I am today. And I have, like I said, I have played with couples, which was fun being on the other
Mhm.
side of it. But I would be like, I don't know how you guys do it because me, I'm too possessive in that
Yeah,
way where I don't think I can handle it. And that's just being honest with myself of who I
absolutely.
am and how I don't think I can handle that. I would be way too possessive and it would probably ruin the whole shit.
There you go. Absolutely.
All of
Then
a sudden, I'm
then
snatching the
awesome.
girl off of him. Like, hell no! What are you? The hell is going on here? I don't think. Mm-mm. So you got to just kind of realize, like, there's some things for you, and there's some things that probably you shouldn't open that door because probably isn't going to end well. It's just like I don't know. I know a lot of people do it because they want it. And like I said, I'm glad I've done a lot of my experiments, being a single woman. I've been pretty much single. I've dated here or there, but I've been single for a long time. And I love the fact that I have dabbled in so many things,
Mhm.
just kind of living life and playing. And I think that has helped me get to where sexually I am, where I
Right.
haven't had, not to say that you'll be dragging someone along in your sexual escapades, but I haven't had to work through anything with anyone else. It's just been about me. What
Right.
do I want? What do I want to try? What do I want to explore? So I feel like, of course, it's going to be very different in a partnership of
Absolutely.
opening those doors
Absolutely.
and trying to work through your issues, right?
And I think that's one of the big benefits of the lifestyle too, is because, there's a lot of people that have been in long-term relationships, and sometimes they were like, I have some of my very best friends, they've been married for 30 years. They've been together obviously even more than that. And, they were each other's first in a lot of different ways. And if they hadn't gotten into the lifestyle, they would never have had the opportunity to explore different sexual sides of themselves. They just
Mhm.
there's only so much that you can get from one person. That's just the
Mhm.
reality, is there's only so much that you can get from one person. There's only so much that you can give. Like, I can't give any more than who I am. And if
Right.
I want my husband to be able to explore different things, then I have to be willing to like open that up. And so there's a lot of people that have been in long-term relationships and they're like, I didn't get a chance to explore. I didn't get a chance to do these sexcapades. I didn't get a chance to have all of these different experiences. So let me talk about my partner. Let me see if together we can agree, we can
Right.
consent to allowing each other to do it. And a lot of people want to do that together. And some
Right.
people want to do that separate. And all of those things are okay. It's all just individual. It's what works for you. It's what works for your relationship. There's no one right way to do it.
Mm.
And again, like the benefits that you've had with you know so much more about yourself because you've had an opportunity to explore sexual things.
Yep.
If you had been in a long-term relationship and didn't have that opportunity, you know, it would have you would have missed that. And
Oh,
so
definitely.
it's just something to talk about, to think about. Like, my job as a coach is not to change anybody's mind about anything or to tell anybody what to do. It's to help them, it's to plant some seeds and help
Mhm.
them think about things a little bit differently, help them think about themselves a little bit differently, open them up to new possibilities, and then being willing to follow those possibilities and see where they lead with a guide so you're not so, "Ah!"
Lost and confused and have no idea what you're doing.
Exactly.
I guess you go through a lot of the embarrassment behind it, which um I could see that. Just in the I could see that being in the on the long term. Because again, if you've been with someone and you're kind of like been together forever, yeah, you wouldn't have sexual experience. You would be very inexperienced, right? And that's the thing that I like to bring up of those conversations, because you don't really know where you're going to go until you've been in situations. You don't know what you're going to feel unless you've been in certain situations. And then it could come up 10, 20 years later. You're like, something's different, or I've been
Right.
feeling this, or whatever this is. And having that person that you can talk to would be awesome,
Yeah,
and not where you feel alienated in whatever you're feeling or whatever, you know, because I think that's other stigmas that people automatically go to the you want to cheat on your person,
of course.
you
Of
know?
course.
Because
It's a
I do
huge
feel like the conversation should start with your person first. Like, what can we do to spice this up, right?
Sure,
And
of
it
course.
doesn't always look like, okay, yeah, let's add a bunch of people. Like people have that stigma. Like, it's like, yeah, just throw in a bunch of people and like that's gonna spice it up. And it's like, no, there's probably, there should be conversations of what else you want to try, or what else you guys want
Absolutely.
to do. And if it happens to be the person, to be the toy, then, and I think that's where a lot of the misconceptions are too, like not realizing, well, playtime is playtime.
Right, absolutely. There's a reason that we call it playing in the lifestyle. We
Right.
don't generally speaking, we don't call it sex. We
Right.
call it, "Hey, we played with this couple," or
Right.
because it's so many people see it as, like, that's that recreation for them.
Right.
Like, it's separate. It's separate than their relationship. It's just playtime, it's just
Right.
recreation, it's just sprinkles, it's just a way to enhance your life, your relationship. It
Right.
doesn't dictate it. And you're right, like, most people sometimes people when the point from them initially having a conversation with their partner or even having a conversation with themselves about being interested in the lifestyle, sometimes the time frame between that and actually swinging happens can be years. And there
Right.
can be so many different things that happen between point A and point B.
Mm.
You talk about it and okay, well, you fantasize about it. You bring it up during sex. You're like, "Oh, what if there was another what if there was another woman doing this? What if this?" You bring it up and you see what their reaction is, or you watch some porn and you talk about it that way. You introduce some toys. You maybe like um make out in a bar, just do a little be a little bit handsy in that way. So you have a little bit of like exhibitionism. And so then you kind of how do you feel about this? Was this exciting? Did you like this? Did you not? And then you build from it. It very rarely goes from like, hey, let's swing to that weekend. Yeah, we're fucking another couple. Like, again, not saying that that doesn't happen, but it's
Right.
rare.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think the way our minds can go and the assumption journey of anything. I think you can just run with it and create all of
Absolutely.
these scenarios that not necessarily are true or the majority. So I love that you're kind of unpacking it for everyone. So again, you guys, if you've been thinking, or if you've been trying to understand, or if you're, I would say if you're working through your own shit about it, because I think that's majority of it. It's like the people who kind of want to do it but can't work their own shit to try it, or can't get past their stuff to do it. And so then they're just like rah rah against it. Like I said, I don't really, it's not a, I don't look down at anyone for their sexual their desires in sexuality. I think that that's something that you should explore and you should play with, and you should open that up and understand what you like and what you don't like and what gets you there. You know, like personally, I wouldn't I wouldn't want to date a man who is with other men. For me, that doesn't excite me, right? It doesn't do anything for me. And I think that, but you have to kind of understand it. You have to be around it and see it. And you have to, okay, yeah, this is not something for me. You would never know unless you've been in a situation and see it. And you're like, yeah, no, this isn't for me,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I'm like, it's not my party. It's not my cup of tea. And having that open to not just be like ill, or you guys are fucking crazy, but understand that there's so many different ways. Now of course, like I said, there are some shit that I'm like, no, like animals and stuff like that, I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I have a very judgment.
Well, I mean, there's an ethical line too, like
Yeah. I have some judgments about that stuff, but when it comes to just playing and with your sexuality in very not harmful ways, then I can understand that and I can get with it. But once it starts going to the harm and stuff, I'm like, it's kind of hard for me to swallow that. Still try to
yeah,
keep open mind about it, but it's like, no.
yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
All a
All right, you
journey.
guys. I know we have to wrap it up. We've been on here a little bit past the hour, so I don't want to keep her too long. But thank you so much, Joe, for coming on and just really getting raw with us today about swinging. I love it. I will have all your links and stuff in the description, no matter if you guys are listening over there on Spotify, iHeart, Apple, or if you're over there on YouTube watching. I'll have her links in the description so you guys can go check her out. Go talk to her. Shit, if you need help, she would be someone who can assist you and get your swing on. Okay. Any last words that you want to tell them before we end this?
Just like recognize that wherever you are right now is okay. Like there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's not your fault. It's not bad. Wherever you are right now is okay. Like just try. It's sometimes easier said than done, but just accept where you are right now in the journey and go from there.
Awesome. All right, you guys. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.